Welcome back to the Ultimate Guide to Striking Part 3. In this video, we will cover setups and deception and how to fight as or against a Southpaw. If you haven't already, check out Part 1 and 2 of this series where we cover footwork, ring and octagon control, and feints and angles. Please hit that subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at techniques.co. Alright, let's get into it. Setups and deception. It is often said that it's the punch you don't see coming that knocks you out. So learning correct movements is a two-way street, as what you gain in proper mechanics, you lose in unpredictability. If I know exactly where your punches come from and what timing you throw them on, then I can mentally and physically prepare for them. My mind can pull my head away and dodge the punches, and my body can tense up the muscles, causing the vibrations of my brain to not be as drastic. When we do not see punches coming, however, we cannot put up any proper response and our muscles do not tense up, causing knockouts to come much easier. This is why the best and most electric fighters have their own flair and version of each strike. The foundation of their striking is always the basics: footwork and hand positioning, using their core to strike, but they bend and break the rules at their will. For instance, if a normal cross keeps both of our feet in one position as we turn our core for power and extend our shoulders for more reach, then we have great mechanics and generate great power. But what if this punch consistently comes short on an opening we see? And what if we just need 2 more inches of reach to get there? You could place your feet 2 inches closer and punch with the same mechanics, but this would also place you in range to be punched back. What if we want them to think we're out of range? What if we want our opponent to think that they can't be hit from a certain range and don't have to move defensively to not get hit? Well, then we could theoretically step forward with our back foot on our punch to gain distance on our strikes. A big no-no, as it could place us in bad range if we miss. This is a play on ranges, and although it can definitely get Sean O'Malley in trouble in the future, he uses it consistently to strike from distances his opponent doesn't think he can reach them from. Deception, however, can come in many forms, not only range deception. We can also deceive our opponent by having them think one kind of strike is coming and then throw another. You see, our minds are clever. We start to recognize cues people do before they throw a strike. So if I see that your hips turn a certain way or your shoulders display a certain movement, I can read that and move appropriately. So if I analyze your movements based off of what I think is coming and react defensively, but then you throw something completely different, it could place me in a very bad position. The classic instance of this would be the question mark kick, as it's meant to look exactly like the push kick or teep. Front kicks or teeps are linear and begin with the raising of the knee, while a swing kick or roundhouse kick is circular. A common but incorrect defensive tactic for a front kick or teep is to catch the foot with both hands, exposing your face. So if I raise that knee in a linear motion, knowing that your hands are coming down to catch, then I can easily turn my kick over in a circular motion and strike to the exposed area of the face. This level of deception needs a setup and should not be thrown blindly or what's called naked. So the front kick should be thrown multiple times to get the reaction we want out of our opponent so that they feel safe with that defensive movement. Fabricio Verdum displayed a similar trickery against Mark Hunt because he knew that Mark was massively worried about the takedown. Fabricio shoots in a few times and fails, but he has now conditioned Mark to lower his weight to brace for stuffing the takedown. So Fabricio simply fakes the takedown, and as Mark's body weight comes down to stuff it, he comes up with the flying knee. Samart Payakrun was also a master at laying traps by understanding the rules and breaking them. Here he is hit with a right hand cross and makes his opponent believe that he is hurt by breaking the correct footwork pattern. He steps lead foot first towards his right, displaying that he could be hurt, and his opponent should capitalize, drawing him in. Then, just at the correct moment, he plants his back foot and shoots into a right cross of his own, capitalizing on the lapse in focus and judgment. We are now speaking on a level of martial arts where concepts are more important than specific movements, as this concept can be used over and over again with different strikes. Set a pattern and throw a technique consistently while conditioning your opponent into a consistent defensive tactic. Then break that pattern, make your next strike look vaguely like your original one, and capitalize on the newly incorrect defensive pattern. Southpaw. In any sport, we learn and understand how to attack and defend our opponents through repeated movements. In basketball, if I know which way players like to generally move and get their shot off, I can anticipate that movement and beat them to the spot. If most of the players I play against are right-handed, they probably have certain movements that are done based off this dominant hand. Now if all of a sudden I face a left-handed player and those movements are opposite, it can create confusion in how I should attack this problem. In fighting as an orthodox fighter, you get used to seeing a stance that mirrors your own, with the left foot forward and right foot back, bladed so their close side is on our power side. With southpaw fighters, however, everything is backwards. Their power side is open to your power side, and vice versa. This poses a problem, as the majority of fighters are right-handed, so the majority of the time you train against an orthodox style opponent. Many gyms may not even have a southpaw fighter, and when you do finally come across a southpaw, it can be baffling at how to attack this stance because it seems like most of our natural setups are negated. In a traditional stance, we typically match center lines, so many people attempt to do the same against a southpaw as well. This, however, poses a problem, because when matching center lines against a southpaw fighter, our lead foot faces their lead foot, which means our jab hand is directly in line with their jab hand, and therefore they are in the way of one another. Orthodox fighters are typically used to leading with their jab hand, so taking away the weapon that leads the dance can often throw off a fighter's whole game. Fighting is about advantageous positions, and quite often, if we slightly change the positioning of our feet, we can change the outcome of our strikes. So first, we're going to take a look at outside foot position. Our lead foot is now on the outside of our opponent's lead foot, effectively placing our right cross directly down the center line, where it's very easy to slip the opponent's jab. Southpaws typically know this game, and they lead with their cross instead of their jab, and therefore are in a beautiful position to throw a lead hook after the cross that loops around the guard. Notice how both the jab and cross of the opponent are slightly offline. This is the beauty of outside foot positioning. If you are in MMA, Muay Thai, or kickboxing, you can turn this into a cross, hook, power swing kick, or knee combination that lands very nicely to the open side of our opponent. Southpaws typically are always fighting for the outside foot positioning. Vasily Lomachenko, currently one of the best southpaws and possibly the best boxer on earth, is always fighting for that outside foot position, where he can create advantageous angles and not get hit. But you don't have to fight for the outside position constantly. You can play with the opponent, letting them think you don't have the angle, and then stepping to the outside while throwing the cross. Understand the outside foot positioning concept and why it works, but never fall in love with any particular concept and only use one over and over. Instead, consistently try your best to be inconsistent, as repeated movements can be studied and taken advantage of. Inside foot position. The same way outside foot position places your cross down the center line, the inside foot position places your jab down the center line. Here we see Rory McDonald using both concepts, one after the other. Foot positioning always leads the dance, so while his foot is on the outside, he nails a cross down the center, and while his foot positioning is on the inside, he nails a jab down the center. This fight was an instant classic, and a beautiful study of southpaw versus orthodox tactics. Robbie Lawler, a southpaw, actually likes to fight with his lead foot on the inside, and it was fascinating to watch Rory actually fight him for inside foot positioning, something you would expect to be the exact opposite. Again, watch Robbie use the exact same concept, inside foot for the jab, outside foot for the cross. It's a simple 1-2 combination, but it's made elite by the added footwork and cadence of the strikes. If your opponent is consistently working for the outside foot positioning, then they are consistently working themselves into a position that is open for spinning attacks, whether that be spinning backhand, kick, or elbow. This is obviously especially true in sports like Muay Thai or MMA, where we have more weapons at our disposal. Sometimes it's best not to fight the opponent if they are constantly looking for the outside foot positioning, but use the inside foot positioning where you can hit jabs down the center line or use spinning attacks. Hand fighting. As we know, setups and deception are a massive part of fighting. If I know what attack is being thrown at me, then I can plan defensively for that attack while also knowing how to counter it. In his early come-up, Conor McGregor did this masterfully by using his body type, agility, and reactions. Conor's arms are incredibly long for his height, and he punches with full extension while managing distance very well, so most fighters he faces have to gain distance to reach him. He therefore uses hand fighting to begin the process of eliminating the lead hand option from his opponent. Conor is constantly reaching out to control Eddie Alvarez's lead hand, pawing at it repeatedly. Eddie becomes increasingly annoyed with this tactic and even tries to smack the hand away. What he doesn't realize is that the option of his left hand is being taken away from him, leaving only the option of an expected right-handed strike. Seconds later, he plays his card. It was expected, and the contact is made worse because Eddie has to take a step forward on his cross to even gain the distance to potentially hit Conor. This places him in a terrible position and allows him to be caught with a pull cross counter. While we're on the topic of Conor McGregor, when fighting an opposite stance fighter, our slip cross counter is to the opponent's cross and not their jab, something that can take a while to get used to but can be massively effective. And while we stand here post Conor McGregor Dustin Poirier 3, it's easy to forget how effective Conor's striking ability was when he first rose to fame. Hand trapping. Let's say you don't want to step to the outside at all or are having trouble with this position. Well, this is then where hand traps while hand fighting can come into play. It is very subtle, but watch as Darren Till pulls down Jorge Masvidal's lead jab hand right before he throws his cross. This is done to clear space for the cross to land and is a very easy way to land a cross for a southpaw or against a southpaw. Vasily Lomachenko uses the same hand trap in open space, but it's actually his rear-handed hand trap that really shines. When Vasily has his opponents using the double block defense, he very often reaches out with his rear hand, in turn placing his lead hand into a power position, and pulls his opponent's hand down, opening space up for his lead hook to land cleanly. This type of hand trap should be used only if you have your opponent up against the ropes or cage in a defensive position, whereas the lead hand trap can be done in open space. The Corkscrew Uppercut. Prince Naseem Hamed was a notoriously slick southpaw. His style was so crazy to watch because he bent and broke all of the rules of striking. Don't jump when you punch. Keep your hands up. Don't dance and taunt your opponent while you fight. Keep your feet planted when you punch. Don't start a combination with a lead uppercut. All rules that Prince Nas threw to the side. His bread and butter was the lead uppercut into rear cross, commonly known as the Corkscrew Uppercut. First step was to step offline with his lead foot. During this step, the rear shoulder should move forward, placing our lead hand in a position to turn powerfully into a shot while also putting your head off the center line defensively. This allows him to hit with a power lead uppercut while almost jumping into his new foot position. At this point, he can throw his power left cross on an angle where he can hit his opponent and his opponent cannot hit him. Remember, this is the key to fighting. Hit and don't get hit. The outside step for the Corkscrew Uppercut is the most important step, because if you just lead with an uppercut, it leaves your face exposed. If Darren Till had taken that outside step before his lead uppercut, then he would not have been there to be hit by Tyron Woodley. Fighting is an incredible game of inches, and small lapses in judgment can be the difference between winning and losing. Open side advantage. This may sound stupid, but think of the human back like a turtle shell. It is hard, does not hurt as much when you hit it, and the back of the head is prohibited to hit. Their stomach, on the other hand, is soft. The ribs and arms can be more easily broken, and the front of their face is exposed. If I am fighting a same stance fighter, orthodox versus orthodox or southpaw versus southpaw, then my power kick is lined up to their closed side. If I'm fighting an opposite stance fighter, orthodox versus southpaw or southpaw versus orthodox, then my power kick is lined up with their open side. This is great news. Oh, but wait, your open side is lined up with their power side as well. Therefore, it's the fighter who knows how to use these tactics best who will capitalize on the open side advantage. One of the best southpaw kickers in the game is Yodson Klai, and he knows this game. In any one of his fights, you see him hammering in left kicks to the body over and over again. This is such an advantage because the correct defense to this kick is to check it with your rear foot. And guess who drills how to check kicks with their rear foot? Pretty much no one. Fighters end up blocking with their arms, something that is fine after 2 or 3 kicks, but after 4, 5, 6, it really starts to wear you down. Notice something he doesn't do: leg kicks. Yod almost never throws leg kicks, and if you watched Anderson Silva versus Chris Weidman 2, you might know why. Painful to watch, yes, but a great lesson in southpaw tactics. It is much easier to check kicks to the inside than the outside because your knee is already aimed in that direction. All Chris had to do was place his knee in the way of Anderson's shin, and although this does not happen all the time, I would generally stay away from using open side leg kicks over and over against an opposite stance fighter. In conclusion, what at first feels completely backwards can become strategy through a few different foot placement changes and tactic adjustments. These will later help in fighting against orthodox fighters, as you may be able to switch back and forth between stances and change your tactics appropriately. These are only some of the tactics available against southpaw, and they should be drilled and done on pads before tested out in competition. Congratulations on coming to the end of the ultimate guide to striking. Fighters who understand, practice, and implement stance, footwork, ring control, feints, angles, setups, deception, and southpaw into their game can become masters at fighting and evolve with the sport. As it's incredible to watch the sport grow so quickly with new techniques being introduced and then widespread. 2 years ago, low kicks were thrown to the thigh. Then a few fighters threw them to the calf, causing far more damage. Today, we see calf kicks on every single fight card, if not every fight. The sport is constantly evolving in a monkey see, monkey do environment, and if fighters don't keep up, they'll be left in the dust. Respect for getting to the end of this guide. Techniques understands the struggle and journey of a martial artist, and we are happy to aid in the development in any way we can. So if you took something from this, thank you. Keep the journey of self-expression going. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can follow us on Instagram at techniques.co, and you can shop techniques at techniquescombat.com.